Welcome back. I don't have a guest. I'm the guest. I'm the guest. I'm the not. You're the guest on my channel, but I'm the guest in your apartment. That's what I wanted to say. This is Murdock. I'm Stefan from Stefan Rielstein Experience, and this is again one of our videos together where we had the idea like 1 minute before we started recording it, so it's totally improvised. And that's also the point of this video.
Yeah, that's gonna be something
It's about different. I have a bag and I pull out
what's in his
things
bag.
in this. What's in the bag? I pull out stuff, records, and we both have to say what's our first what we think about it, what we associate with it. Maybe we don't know anything about those records. I mean, I know that I bought those records because yesterday I was in a record shop, a shop I've never been to before, and I bought for like 120 euros. I bought records, and I haven't yet listened to them. So this will be like us talking about what kind of stuff.
It's always good to look at records, even if I don't know them.
So, and I already forgotten which records are in this bag. So we will be both surprised.
Number one.
Oh.
And it's a third video we're doing today, so maybe if I start stuttering.
Lou Reed,
The Bells.
Do you know anything about this album? Or this artist?
Yes, I know.
Everybody
knows
about this
Lou Reed, I know. Transformer, of course, Berlin.
Yeah.
But actually, for a while, I like to listen to the late 80s, early 90s Lou Reed. So New York is one of my favorite albums.
This is from 1979.
This is from 79. So I know the cover, but I don't think I've ever listened to this.
Me too. I've never listened to this, so I'm really curious about it. My favorite Lou Reed album is not very original. It's Transformer, which is probably very different from this.
Yeah.
Transformer is this, piano ballads, David Bowie production.
I think Transformer is the only Lou Reed album that sounds like that in his whole catalog.
And there's always this talk that that most of the other Lou Reed albums are very difficult, sometimes very difficult to get into, and that it almost mocks the audience with what he does. So I don't know in which category of his work this falls. If this is one of the more approachable albums.
I'm not sure.
Or if it's one of the very wild albums that don't want to be liked.
It's an interesting cover.
It's a good cover, when you don't know an album, but of course you know the artist, then it's often that way that you're in a record shop and you go for the records and you think, okay, this looks nice. At least this looks nice. I don't know what it sounds like, but at least it looks nice. Yeah. It's a good cover, good back cover. Lou Reed, The Bells.
The Bells. So maybe you'll talk about it on your channel later.
I will listen to all those albums in the next couple days, weeks, and maybe I will do videos or one video where I talk about my impressions, or maybe not. Maybe I don't. Maybe I listen to these albums and I don't have anything interesting to say about it. I know you have something interesting to say about the next record I'm going to show. Okay. It's the only CD.
Okay.
The rest is vinyl. But I always, this wasn't bought yesterday. I bought this like 3-4 weeks ago, but haven't yet listened to it. But I brought it along because I know you will have something to say about it.
Hopefully.
You know this. You know this band.
Yes,
this release. Living in the Past, Jethro Tull.
Yes.
You're a big Jethro Tull fan.
Yes.
I'm becoming like a fan of Jethro Tull. This is a compilation, right? This is the first 3. Is this the best songs from the first 3-4 albums, or is it one-off singles, standalone singles?
It's from the time of the first 3 albums, but it's single A and B sides. So stuff that wasn't on the albums.
But there are a couple of tracks that I know from the albums. Okay. Locomotive Breath. That's on Aqualung. Right? So is this a different version from the album?
No, I think it's the same version.
So there's a couple of songs I will be familiar with, because I have the first 4 albums.
Yeah.
More than 4 albums, but I also have the first 4. So I have everything that's covered in that time on albums, but there's also tracks I'm not going to be familiar with.
The B-sides.
Are they good?
I like them very much. They sound a little bit different, or a bit more straightforward maybe than...
And I also think there are 2 live tracks.
2 live tracks, which are lots of soloing. Not sure if you will like this, but maybe listen to it. And the last few tracks, apart from Locomotive Breath, are more on the acoustic side. This is, and I've mentioned this in videos of mine several times. I think this is one of the best compilations that I know.
I think I had it subconsciously in my mind that you said this, and maybe that's why I wanted.
But it was also my entry to Jethro Tull because my parents had this one, and
your Jethro Tull ranking video was my entry to Murdocks Music Minutes, and I seem to remember that you also said that you're not going to rank this because this is a studio, that you said this was your entry point. So maybe I bought it because of that, because I remembered that it's also my favorite video of yours. It's my all-time favorite.
Warms my heart. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what you say to this. I find this fantastic, and it's not the proggy or not so much prog Jethro Tull. It's the earlier Jethro Tull where they were, and some of the singles like Witch's Promise sound unlike anything else when they even try to do kind of pop hits, but very eccentric.
Do you know the other reason why I bought it? That there was the emotional reason, which was music. Murdocks Music Minute talked about it, and I loved that video. And the rational motive was that it was really a bargain because Jethro Tull now are releasing a new edition, Still Living in the Past. Yeah. So now they throw this out for like €3 or something.
But imagine like doing a deluxe box set of a compilation. So that tells you about the status of this one in the Tull discography.
You also know the channel Classic Album Review, or what it's called, and he did a long interview with Ian Anderson. Yeah. And where they talked about Still Living in the Past. So at first I thought, I'm going to buy Still Living in the Past. But then I saw, now this is very, very cheap because of the other release. Yeah. So that's why I bought this.
The original album came with a nice booklet with crazy photographs of the band.
Let's look at the booklet. Yeah.
Do they have it still? No.
Right.
It's a
it is. They have it. Yeah, you have it.
Yeah. Excellent.
Oh, yes, I have to show.
Yeah. So that was my idea of what rock bands were supposed to look like when I was a kid. I think the first time I heard Jethro Tull must have been when I was 4 or 5 years old, and that somehow influenced me on how I see rock bands.
My father.
Strange choice.
My father also liked Jethro Tull, so I should have been brought up with Jethro Tull, and maybe he played them a couple of times to me. But then, they didn't stick with me. I have no memories of listening to them. Yeah. Because maybe I was so anti-prog early on in my life. But in the last 1 or 2 years, because initiated by your video, I'm really becoming more and more a fan of Jethro Tull, and I have now like 10 albums of Jethro Tull. Everything from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. I think, Tull could be very proggy, but they still, or most of the time, they always offer something also for rock fans.
You don't have to be a prog fan.
Yeah. Okay.
Great band.
Looking forward to the next one.
Oh, you know the guy.
Ooh. Then
everyone knows him.
More of the roots, the classics.
One of the not so nice persons in rock history.
There are a lot of those.
But one of the best songwriters of all time. Maybe the best rock and roll songwriter of all time, Chuck Berry.
Yeah, he provided us with all the templates.
It always sounds the same, but it sounds great. It sounds great. You don't need more.
Never change the formula if it works.
I never had an album by.
I have to admit, I don't have any really classic rock and roll or not a lot of music from the 50s in my collection.
I have some compilations. I have some compilations where you have various artists, so I have lots of Chuck Berry songs on those compilations, and I love it. I love everything about 50s rock and roll. It's really.
As a serious music fan, you probably should have something like this. Yeah. So
I really like 50s rock and roll, and now I find a Chuck Berry compilation at least. I don't think his original albums are that interesting, but this is a very comprehensive greatest hits.
Right.
So what's in the bag? Oh, that's also. Interesting.
Okay, yeah.
Are you familiar?
I'm familiar with the name. I might have heard 1 or 2 of his tracks, but I couldn't claim that I'm really...
Heron.
Yeah. Usually considered one of the forefathers of hip-hop or a spoken word.
Yeah. But I also, I'm like you, that's one I bought because I know I should get into it, I should discover it, but haven't yet. So maybe I know 1 or 2 songs. Maybe it's most.
The Revolution will not be televised. Is
this
a regular studio or is
this
compilation?
Is also a compilation. Okay. I usually like to, with artists like that, I like to go through a best of, and then if I like it, I will check out the albums. Yeah, I'm really looking forward
Okay, yeah,
to
that's-
it. But I have no, I haven't. Maybe like I said, I have maybe heard the one or two biggest songs, but
Yeah.
I don't really have them, in my
Yeah.
in my mind. I don't know how they are, what they're sounding like. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting
yeah.
to find out.
That's the next one.
Ah, okay.
r.e.m. Murmur.
Indie classic.
Are you familiar with them?
I'm familiar with the album. I have to say I'm not the biggest r.e.m.
Me too.
fan.
Me too.
And it's been a while since I've really heard it. So I don't have it. I know it, but I...
I'm one of those guys, hardcore r.e.m. fans usually always say the 80s work was their best work and then they sold out.
Yeah, with
But
Time Out of Mind.
Yeah.
So it's-
But as usual, I'm the opposite of the typical fan. I really like the so-called sell-out albums. Automatic for the People is by far my favorite r.e.m. album. And I never could get into the 80s albums, but I have the feeling this is the debut album. I have the feeling that this of the 80s, that could be my entry point to the 80s albums, because the songs I know from this debut album, like Radio Free Europe, which was their first hit, I like.
Yeah, they're good.
I like that.
Yeah, it's good.
And from what I read about the album, I think this has the chance to be the first time that I really like an 80s r.e.m. album. I mean, I like Document from 1987, but all the albums before, all the albums after Murmur and before Document, I listened to and I didn't like. So maybe I'm giving them a chance with Murmur.
Yeah, from the time when Michael Stipe
Had
couldn't
hair.
really be understood. That's
when he had
why it's
hair.
called Murmur now.
No, this was the time when he still had hair.
Oh yeah, long hair.
Yeah, and this is always, I tried to get this for a reasonable price for years, and it's always 30 euros, 40 euros, 50 euros, and this was 20 or 25.
Yeah, if you look at the band here, it really screams college rock. That's probably why the
what it
term
is.
college rock was invented.
Yeah.
But it's a good one as far as I remember.
But
Catapult is also a great song. Yeah, the
Yeah.
opening track. Right.
So the next one is interesting for me. Do you have anything to say about Leon Russell?
The only time I came across Leon Russell was the concert for Bangladesh.
Yeah, me too.
So, no idea.
The thing is,
And he's done something with Elton John.
yeah, but I haven't listened to it because I'm not really an Elton John fan, apart from the 70s.
So I couldn't even say what kind of music this is. It's gonna be
I expect it
rock
to
or
be
more country or some...
I expect it to be soulful R&B flavored country rock, which is a strange kind of genre if it exists, but that's that's my impression from the concert for Bangladesh. And I have to say, from all the artists of the concert for Bangladesh, he's the one I skip. It's like even Ravi Shankar. I like Ravi Shankar,
Yes,
but Leon Russell is like, I don't want to.
So why did you like the album?
Because I'm a Beatles completist, and this is one of the few last albums with Beatle involvement that I'm aware of that I never had, because I didn't, I'm not, my impressions from Leon Russell were like, it's not for me, it's not interesting.
So who's involved? Is it with Ringo Starr or did George Harrison produce it or what?
I have yet to, I bought this yesterday in the record shop without having any knowledge. I have yet to read it up, but I'm pretty sure that George and or Ringo are on this album.
Okay.
Because it's that early 70s Leon Russell, and usually they hung around with him. They were in his circle. That was this. Also the Derek and Domino's circle. The gang that produced the Layla album and the All Things Must Pass album. They were all connected. Bonnie and Delaney and Bonnie. That's all the same kind of crew. Yeah. Crew that.
But now that you mentioned it, there is another.
And recorded by Glyn Jones.
Okay. Ah, okay.
So it's it's that Beatle kind of scene, Billy Preston scene also. I wouldn't be surprised if Billy Preston is on there. Eric Clapton, okay, now read it. Eric Clapton, Klaus Voormann. It's the usual suspects. Eric Clapton, Klaus Voormann.
But there's another really famous artist who actually sometimes did soulful R&B country rock.
Billy Preston.
No, it's Van Morrison.
Yeah, but I don't think that Leon Russell is as good as Van Morrison.
Yeah, opinions about Van Morrison are
he's in my
divided.
Van Morrison is my top 10 all-time favorite artists according to a video I did once. I think he's my number 10.
Okay.
My 10th favorite artist of all time. This is probably the one I'm looking forward to the most.
I don't know what it is.
It's a double feature. It's 2 albums. It's a twofer.
Yeah. Getting envious here. Yeah. I still need to get some early Tyrannosaurus
Rex. So the band before T.rex.
Yeah.
Before they became.
And they were
before
doing
Mark Bolan became T.rex.
freaky hippie folk psychedelic folk. Yeah.
I know a couple of tracks from Tyrannosaurus Rex because I'm a big T.rex fan.
Yeah.
And on some, or maybe even most of the best of compilations of T.rex, there's also Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Maybe we should do a T.rex ranking at one point.
Yeah. But I haven't yet listened to full albums by Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Okay.
But I always like those tracks on those best of.
Yeah.
So I think I will like it because
really,
I like also that folky stuff.
Yeah.
The British folk from the late 60s. But I also like the glam rock of T.rex. But this is maybe this is the best of both worlds.
Yeah. I mean, I've listened to those albums, and maybe some of the tracks are a bit samey, but still they are fascinating. So yeah. And very sparse. I mean, it's just bongos and guitar, and maybe sometimes a little bit of electric guitar, but it's mostly acoustic.
Yeah. But I'm a big Mark Bolan fan, so I had to, at one point I had to get this. It's really been too long, me living without those.
I still need to get them at one point.
So, it goes on and on.
Good choice. Stones?
A band you might be familiar with.
Yeah.
It's the second album. And I never ever heard this album. I know some songs, there's classic, of course it's the Stones. There's classics, but also songs that would become Stones classics, like Time Is On My Side. Everybody knows that song, I guess. So there's songs I'm familiar with, but it's one of the few, maybe it's the only Stones. I think I've never listened to Dirty Work in its entirety, but it's one of a couple of Stones albums I never really listened to track 1 to last track.
Yeah.
Also because it doesn't have the best reputation, when you want those early blues covers, Stones. Many people say the debut album, which is a good album, but it's a really my type of music.
I'm not a huge fan of it.
But people always say the first is better than this.
Okay.
But I'm not really a very serious Stones completist, but I'm getting there. So when I'm 60, I will have all the albums, and I have to start somewhere. So this is one of like 5 or 6 albums by the Stones I didn't have on vinyl yet.
Okay.
So now I have it. Stones.
Looks nice.
You? Another classic. A classic I never had before. What's your opinion?
Tusk.
It seems like you don't like it. First impression.
Well, of those classic Fleetwood Mac albums, it's probably the one I find most interesting. I have to come out of the closet here and say I'm not a big fan of Fleetwood Mac in general, and this resurrection of Fleetwood Mac as this Gen Z
slick
album, Gen Z band. Everybody likes Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. I'm not. It's a band I can live without, but this one is an interesting album. Double album, actually.
I also think that Rumors has become, it wasn't like that always, but it has become one of the most overrated albums of all time. It's a nice album. You know what they do? They're doing good on this album. Yeah. But is it really that good? I'm not sure. And I'm also like, sometimes I really like, I have phases where I really like Fleetwood Mac, and then I have phases where I think the band as in total is overrated, or very overrated these days at least. They used to be a very ridiculed band.
Yes.
In the 90s when I was growing up, and you too, it was like one of those bands that was very uncool to admit to like Fleetwood Mac. It was more like, okay, the Peter Green Fleetwood Mac of the 60s, they're cool, but
edgy, rough,
the American Fleetwood Mac, they're boring and they're just too slick. And then with what Gen was it, Gen Z or something?
Oh, whatever. It's changed over the last few years. I mean, yacht rock is the new big thing.
Yeah. I mean, I like the label yacht rock. That's always debatable, but I like the production style of some of those albums. I like that slick, I like Roxy music. I
enjoy some of that stuff, but
it got it turned into something. Now suddenly it's the coolest thing. It's a bit strange. But this
It's rediscovering that stuff that
this
used
is
to be
supposed
in
to
the
be-
bargain bins in the 1990s.
this is supposed to be their more punky yard rock album. So it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
as
it was
polished
a
as
double
the others.
album, or it's a bit of like their white album with
And I love the White album.
some failed experiments, maybe. Yeah,
It's the White album with a dog
yeah.
and a shoe. So that's the last one now.
Okay.
And this
Oh,
this I
that's a
didn't buy
classic.
yesterday in the
Yeah.
shop. I ordered it like a month ago, but
Yeah.
I haven't yet, opened it.
That's a classic I've been thinking of getting myself.
This is an album
Still
I
haven't
already
got it?
have. I
Okay.
have on vinyl, but the copy is so worn out. It doesn't really sound good anymore. And I also have the CD version because this is actually one of my, I would say, at least top 50 favorite albums of all time. I think this is a big
This
masterpiece.
is definitely one of those
And I
classics that
wanted-
deserves to be a classic.
I wanted to have a reissue, clean vinyl in mint quality that I can listen to it on vinyl without, destroying my ears. This is really a 10 out of 10 masterpiece to me. One of those few albums without a weak track on there, in my opinion, and it's really, it has a flow, it has a character, and Carole King. Maybe these days one of the Fleetwood Mac. Maybe these days one of the most overrated bands. Still a great band, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but overrated.
good band, but
And Carole King, she got a bit, no one really seems to talk about her anymore.
sidetracked a
But
little
she's
bit. Yeah.
she's maybe one of the best songwriters, male or female, of all time.
Yeah.
Not just that album, but also what she did before, and some of the stuff that she did after. So I hope we'll get a Carole King renaissance at one point.
So yeah,
That's it.
interesting records.
Yeah.
Haul, as you say.
That was it. There wasn't any big plan with this video. It was just me showing off some records.
Yeah, maybe some of the viewers know the records.
Yeah, it's
Who
not
who
like
reads the bells?
it's not like those are secret underground records. Those are some of the biggest sellers of all time. I mean, this has sold probably 30 million or something like that. But it's what I found yesterday in the record shop for the most part. So thank you for discussing those records with me, and thank you.
You're welcome.